Hello, this is Daryl Ehrlich, editor of the Billings Gazette, and it is September 21st, 2015, and this is part of our Vietnam Voices series. I'm honored today to have Lynn Walker in studio with us, and Lynn served in the U.S. Army from 1970 to 1972. I'm excited. I'm going to let him tell more about what he did, but Lynn, thank you for joining me today, and I really appreciate the time you've given to me.
Okay.
Hey, let's talk a little bit. So you joined in 1970, but let's back up. Where were you before 1970? What were you doing then? Where were you?
I graduated from high school in Bozeman, 1969. I actually joined the Army before I finished high school. They allowed me to have a delayed entry so I could graduate from high school. So and shortly after I graduated, I reported to Fort Lewis, Washington.
Were you 18 or 17 at the time?
18.
Okay. So you could join, you were able to join on your own, didn't need a parent's signature.
Yeah.
Did you come from a military family?
Yes.
Okay. So is that part of 1969? What were the reasons why you joined?
I wanted to make a career out of the Army. That was my intention. I enlisted in the Army. So. Okay.
Did it worry you? Okay, so 1969, Vietnam is happening. It's not like it was. It's at the front of newspaper pages on news broadcasts. Did it worry you at all to go into Vietnam?
No.
Okay.
It was necessary in the military. If you wanted to advance in rank, you needed to have actual war experience.
Okay. So this was it, if you were going to be a career military man.
It was the only war we had at the time.
Well, enough said. Okay, so you go to Fort Lewis, then what?
Then I went to Fort Gordon, Georgia for advanced individual training. Then I went to Fort Benning, Georgia for airborne school to jump out of airplanes. And then they sent me to Vietnam.
Okay, let's talk about the advanced training a bit, if you don't mind. Learning to jump out of airplanes. Let's rewind a little on that. How do you learn how to jump out of airplanes?
Well, you go through some pretty intensive physical training, a lot of running. They teach you how to land, how to roll, how to absorb the shock. Then they start you out jumping off a 40-foot tower where you kind of slide down a zip line sort of apparatus, and then they graduate you to a 200-foot tower with an actual parachute that they pull up and drop you from. And then the next step after that is they put you in an airplane and fly you off over the drop zone and kind of boot you out the door.
Is that? Tell me what that's like. Is that scary once they boot you?
First time out was pretty scary, but you're not free falling. You're static line jumping. Your chute is pulled automatically for you. And after that, it got to be kind of fun. It was kind of a thrill jumping out of them. And the planes themselves were really old. They sounded like they were going to come apart at any time, and you were kind of happy just to get out of them.
This is the Army's way of motivating you?
Yeah.
Wow. So did you, when you enlisted in high school, is this where you wanted to be? Is this what you pictured yourself doing?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have any conversations with recruiters or about what could you do, or were you going in and going to do whatever they said you were going to do?
I just enlisted for airborne infantry. So.
Okay. And then from there, you got orders after airborne and advanced training. Then you got orders for Vietnam. What was that like? Tell me about receiving those orders.
It's just what I expected. It's kind of what I enlisted for, and was, I wouldn't say anxious to go, but I wasn't afraid either. So.
Okay. Were you going over there? Did you know what your assignment was? Were you going over as a group or individually? Were you going to report?
I was going over as an individual, and I was assigned to the AmeriCal division, which is a non-airborne division, and I was pretty disappointed because I wasn't going to be able to draw the extra money for jump pay. So.
What was the extra money? Do you remember what the extra money was?
$55 or $60 a month, something like that.
So that was money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you go over. Where do you ship out of?
We shipped out of McCord Air Force Base in Washington and flew to Cameron Bay.
Okay.
By way of Anchorage. So
Right. That 2 or 3 stop.
well, we stopped in Japan and then Cameron Bay. So
Okay, so let's talk about touchdown in Cameron Bay. And what's your first impression? What's your first memories of Vietnam, actually in country?
heat and humidity.
Yeah.
Being from Montana, so walked out the door and it was like walking into a steamy locker room. So
Right. This is going to be a long one.
yeah. So it everything. It was a little confusing, but everybody kind of guided you to where you needed to be, and then you had your orders. I was assigned to the AmeriCal division. So after a few days in country and kind of a basic orientation course, they put us on a C-130 and flew us to Chu Lai.
Okay. So what is the orientation course? What do you learn in an orientation course over there?
Oh, just basic things like we didn't have real money. We had what they call MPC and, things to look out for. There was always the talk about venereal disease and that kind of stuff that all GIs got in every war. So
Right.
yeah.
Did you know anything, and can you help those who may not know what the AmeriCal division is? Can you explain that a little?
It was a infantry division in Vietnam. Probably the most famous incident with the AmeriCal division was the My Lai massacre that happened 3 years before I ever got there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that did that in any way color how you perceived it or how the division perceived itself?
Maybe afterwards.
Okay.
Coming back, if they knew you were in the AmeriCal, they might be a little more tempted to call you a baby burner or something like that.
Right.
I was actually in jump school at Fort Benning when they were trying Lieutenant Calley for his war crimes.
Okay.
So,
What was that like? Were you aware of that going through jump school as a in the military? Is that something that you were cognizant of?
I was aware of it, but I didn't really know a whole lot about it. I was just an 18-year-old kid.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So you have some training in country, and then you go up to Chu Lai. Now, let's talk a little bit about Chu Lai. That's a pretty rough part of the country. Not that there were probably any easy parts. But.
Yeah, they were getting pretty constantly hit with 122 millimeter rockets because we were close to the mountains there, and the NVA would shoot rockets because at the time the Marines were there and they had their Phantoms, their aircraft there, and they were always trying to hit those aircraft with the rockets, but they weren't exceedingly accurate. So if they landed inside the American compound, they were happy. So
Right. So a little mind racking as well as
yeah,
could
the first time I came under rocket attack, I thought I was pretty fast. I ran for the bunker, and it was already full when I got there.
So where'd you go?
In the bunker on top of everybody else. So.
Well, there you go. So you get to Chu Lai. What do you remember about Chu Lai? What do you remember about where you were headquartered?
Well, it was kind of pretty. It was on the beach on the South China Sea. It was my first introduction to, how do I say this gently, ship-burning detail.
Okay.
There was no, and I've seen it in some of your previous interviews.
Yeah.
There was no plumbing. There was really no outhouses. You defecated into a sawed-off 55-gallon drum, and then somebody had to go out and burn it. So
I've heard more. I've heard that that's one of the things and smells of Vietnam that no one forgets. True?
Yeah, and it was a very positive incentive to make sergeant because then you didn't have to do it anymore.
What else? What other sights and smells and sounds, like what for you do you remember? Because I think sensory and memory are pretty closely connected. So for you.
Smells do play a big part. The Vietnamese hooch maids in that used a fermented fish sauce. I think it was called Nuc Mao or something like that. A very strong and very distinctive smell. I never got used to it, but I mean, to this day, that's one of their most popular condiments, but
Right.
it kind of put me off.
Right.
It's fermented fish sauce is what it is.
Right. That sounds strong, like it would smell strong.
It is.
So you're up in Chu Lai, and then let's talk a little bit about what you do. Let's talk about what you're assigned to do and what your job is.
Well, I was originally assigned to be a mortarman.
Okay.
And being new in country meant you got to haul the base plate around, which was about 40 pounds, lugging through the jungle. And like I said, I was airborne qualified. So the LRRPs came around recruiting. And one of the things they said, well, you get to draw jump pay again, and we don't take mortars, so you don't have to pack a base plate in the field. And I said, well, it sounds pretty interesting. So I joined the LRRPs at that point.
Okay, and help for those who may not know what LRRP stands for, help me.
It stands for Long Range Reconnaissance Patrols.
Okay.
We went in 6-man teams behind enemy lines.
Okay.
Sometimes cross-border.
Okay.
And my wife wanted to know if it was okay to say that, and I said, yeah, we were declassified back in the 80s, so.
Right. Did you, when they presented this proposition to you, because I've heard a lot talked about LRRPs, but not necessarily a lot of, not well known. Did they tell you what they were going to do, or who they were? Did you have any knowledge of LRRPs?
No, never had heard of them. It was kind of an in-country phenomenon. And after Vietnam, the Army did away with the LRRPs. The only thing that is similar to the LRRPs now is Marine Force Recon.
Okay.
So the Marines actually kept that long-range recon capability after World War II. The Army did away with it after World War II. So the original LRRPs, when the Army decided they needed this function, were actually trained by Marine Force Recon. So.
To kind of start it up again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did they present this? I mean, was it just, hey, you want to do this, or what did they tell you? Did you know what you're getting into, I guess is the question.
Yeah, and kind of a little bit of an adrenaline junkie, jumping out of airplanes and that. Plus they presented the challenge that first you got to get through their in-country training program. And of the 23 of us that started, only 4 of us went into the company.
What was so that's hard? Was that just they just couldn't make it? Was it self-selecting, or tell me about the LRRP training?
Physical training was severe. You were running up to 7 miles with a 50-pound pack and a rifle and water, and lots of map reading, lots of demolitions, lots of small arms training. It's essentially in-country ranger school.
Okay.
And then when I got done there, I had to do almost another month of training with the MAC-V Recondo and the 5th Special Forces down at Nha Trang.
Okay.
And so that was a multinational training. I was actually training with Korean ROCs and Thai LRRPs and different nationalities.
What was that like, that melting pot of training with other soldiers? It
was interesting. That's actually the first time I ever saw Taekwondo. The Korean troops all practice it, the Korean ROCs. So,
okay, did it? So you go through this intense training. Did you think you were going to make it?
There was a few times I got a little sick and a little hurt, and I wondered if I was going to be able to, but I just kept pushing on. So,
right,
yeah.
And then, so when you go down to Nha Trang? What were you doing down there? Like, what's your first introduction? You're training with other forces. Are you actually going out on things, or is it just more training?
Both from the Ranger Recondo School in Chu Lai and the Nha Trang MAC-V Recondo School involved an actual combat mission to graduate. The one in Nha Trang was pretty uneventful. We didn't make contact. The one out of Chu Lai, actually, I got put in for my combat infantry badge on my graduation mission.
Wow.
I got off the chopper, and there was chunks of turf flying up in the air. And I looked at it, and I couldn't figure out what it was, and my team leader grabbed me and pulled me to the trees. It was the NVA across this ravine had opened up on us with a 51 caliber anti-aircraft gun, and the bullets were getting there before the noise.
Gotcha.
So
now,
about that time, I heard the boom, 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 boom.
Wow, that's how quick things happen.
Yeah.
Right. Did you at any point did you wonder, what have I gotten myself into there?
Yeah, there was a few situations I didn't know if we were going to come out. I really didn't.
Now, when you're doing reconnaissance, behind enemy lines.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of, I'm guessing, what kind of support do you have if things go wrong because you're behind enemy lines?
We had a radio, and we at our disposal, we could have artillery, although I was never close enough in to actually be able to use artillery. So primarily it was helicopter gunships. If we were way out, it was sometimes Phantoms, the jets to get out to us, in which case we always requested the Marine pilots. So
Why?
they were the best at ground support.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's after that training, then what? After down into training, then what?
Then I got picked to be on a team. Even if you went through all that training, it was up to the individual LRRP teams if they wanted to take you in the company or not.
Wow. So this is not only selective insofar as their camp, their recondo camp, and then you have to go through several of them. So that's pretty rigorous. And then they get to pick you.
Yeah. And if nobody wanted you, you went back to a line company. So, but I did get on a team. I was on LRRP Team Tennessee and started running regular missions in. So.
Okay, let's talk about what a regular mission looks like. Let's just kind of go through that.
We could only go out for 5 days at a time because we could not be resupplied in the field. It would give our position away. Stealth and silence were our friends. They might know we were in the area, but they didn't know where we were. We had strict noise discipline. We were completely camouflaged. The idea was for them not to know where we were. And then we could, what I'm always proud of is if you read and talk to the other vets when they were on the base camps and that, they were always waiting and wondering when they were going to be attacked. We took the fight to them, so
you were always on the yeah. You were always the aggressors.
Our main mission was to find their main base camps and supply lines and ammo dumps, and then call in the big stuff, call in the bombers and the Phantoms and the gunships, because we were only 6 men. We weren't going to shoot up an NVA division very much, but we'd find them, and then we let the big stuff come in.
When you found them, did you ever get and I don't want to call it, probably the wrong wording, so forgive me, my clumsiness. Did you get the satisfaction of watching them bring in the big guns to take care of them?
But then we had to
get out
because then they knew somebody was there.
Okay.
Because we had triple canopy jungle. It was pretty tough to find them. So.
Right. Let's talk about how do you find the enemy?
Usually we go into an area based on intelligence reports.
Okay.
And then we'd have a general idea of what to look for. One of my first missions, we went into an area where a Special Forces A team, which is 12 Green Berets, completely disappeared, and we went in to look for them. We did not find them, but we found lots of NVA. So. Okay.
Now, are you looking for you're up in the part of the country where you're basically looking for NVA, right? You're not doing.
We saw very few VC. The VC were actually South Vietnamese civilians. The NVA, that's all I ever saw was regular North Vietnamese soldiers.
Right. What did
except for one that was Chinese.
Not probably surprising that they're there. Let's just talk about what does the NVA look like? What is your assessment? You're an Army. They are trained fighters. You're in a fighter. What's your assessment of them?
I had a lot of respect for them. They were trained soldiers. They were dedicated. They were very committed to getting the LRRPs because we did a lot of damage to them. We could find them when nobody else could, and they sometimes came after us with everything they had. So,
what do you mean by that? Tell me what that means.
With heavy weapons and a lot of men. I mean, we were 6, and there was times when we were completely and totally surrounded, and the only thing that got us out was getting the gunships there in time to get us supported. So.
Right. Was your small number ever an advantage? I mean, could you hide easily?
It was much easier to hide. That's the reason we went in small teams.
Okay. Was the training adequate for what you were going to do?
Yeah, it was. It really was. And then you learned sort of on-the-job training when you got out in the field. The other guys always had more experience than you. I ended up walking point my whole time. We didn't change positions. So I was a point man. That's what I did.
So you're out in front.
Always, yeah.
Did that cause you some concern? That would be
No, that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to know what was going on.
before everybody else.
Yeah.
How far now? I've always heard, too, in Vietnam, you don't bunch up. You're spread out. Is that true for LRRPs?
You're spread out enough to where if they throw a grenade or something, it's only going to get a couple of you, not all of you. So.
Okay. They also had a name for LRRPs. What did they call you?
The men with painted faces is what they called us.
Okay, and why? And explain to me a little bit about that. Just
when we went out, we were completely camouflaged, and our faces, our hands, even our eyelids, strict noise discipline. The idea was we would wear camouflage clothing. The idea was to be completely undetectable. We wouldn't even take a bath for a couple days before we went out because they smell different than us. And our soap, you can smell. So, and we're working in so close, you can smell them. So we wouldn't even take a bath for a couple days before we went out.
Must have been a heck of a fragrant group.
Yeah, especially when we came back.
Yeah, after 5 days, 7 days without bathing.
Yeah.
What's the? How do you? Okay, you're in triple canopy. Jungle forest.
I worked in the Central Highlands. It was very mountainous and very jungly.
Okay. How do you, when you're out there, I mean, I can think enough about walking in thick Montana forests.
Mm-hmm.
And you're always stepping on branches and twigs and making things snap and all that. How do you be silent in a place like that?
You learn a special way to walk. So.
Okay.
And you look very carefully where you step. And it used to be kind of a joke with us that you'd just walk up behind people and scare them because they could never hear us coming. So some of the other terms that they've used for us is 6 silent men. So
okay. And when you did you move very fast? If you're doing that, you're probably having to move a little bit slower to make sure you're
moving fairly slow. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
did they ever?
And we're staying off the main trails. We're staying out of the clear areas. We're kind of sticking to the heavier growth so that if they were up on a mountain, they couldn't see us walking along there. So,
did they ever come upon you by accident, or did you ever stumble into them?
We kind of stumbled into them, not completely, but we were so close we could hear their chickens clucking in their base camp. So then we snuck up and looked, and we were way closer than we wanted to be.
What do you do in a moment like that when you're closer than you want to be?
We just kind of backed off and moved down the trail, and it wasn't our primary objective on that mission. But then we soon realized they had gotten onto us and they were following us. So,
what do you do then?
We just kept moving out until we got to an area where we could call for a chopper to pull us out because we had, at that point, been compromised.
Okay. Is that pretty scary? When that happens, that's scary.
That particular time wasn't too bad. We didn't come out under fire, but probably 85% of my extractions, we came out under fire. So
okay.
We had a really close relationship with the helicopter pilots. They were our salvation. None of us would be here without them. And one of them told me once, I used to think you guys were crazy for going out and doing what you did. And then I got to realize I had to be even crazier to come and get you.
Is that true?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. Would they come and get you in Hueys, or did they have to come and get you with something a little more firepower?
Well, it usually was a couple helicopter gunships laying down fire while they came in to get us. But there was a lot of green tracers going around all the time.
Yeah. How many times would you have to call in? I mean, so it's a 5-day mission because you couldn't be resupplied. How many times did you have to call before the end of that 5 days?
I probably only made it a full 5 days, 3 or 4 missions. So, and those were mostly like observation missions where we'd be up on a mountain watching the activity down below us in the valley and that. So, but most of the time we would make contact or they would get on to us. And like I said, with the bounty on our heads, they were trying to get to us. So a lot of times we were running and fighting as we ran to try to get to a clearing big enough to bring a chopper in or to get the gunships there to support us, because when we initially made contact, it was just the 6 of us. So,
when you got how long did it take usually to get between once you thought we got to get out of here and by the time you've got a gunship? How long would that be? It probably seemed longer.
Yeah, it always seems longer when you're being shot at, but
good.
I don't know, maybe from 1 to 2 hours. It was dependent on how far out we were. So, like I said, if we were way out, sometimes they would send the jets because they couldn't get the choppers to us in time.
Okay, and then hopefully they just pound the enemy enough where...
Yeah, we could get to an opening big enough for a chopper to get us out. Sometimes we had to come out by McGuire rig. That's 6 ropes suspended from a chopper through a hole in the canopy, and you tie it into a rig around your waist, and then you all lock arms and they pull you straight up through the trees.
That's probably pretty wild, isn't it?
We actually lost some guys with that method because they took off before they were clear of the trees. So,
ooh,
yeah.
Is there a little bit of an adrenaline rush if someone's chasing you and you're kind of in retreat? That would seem to be a terrifying adrenaline rush, both scary and exhilarating at the same time.
Yeah.
What did many? So when you're not always going on a mission every single day, or what do you do after? So you get back from a mission, then what?
You had a little stand-down time. Sometimes you were there for 3 or 4 days, and you go back out again. We made enough missions back and forth flying that most of us qualified to get air medals, for which your normal line troops couldn't because they were out there for a month at a time. But we did a lot of flying. During monsoon season, we might be back there for 2 or 3 weeks before it would let up enough that we could get out. So,
right. Did you always, and you were always with the same 6 guys or relative? I mean, I understand that people are rotating in or out, but it's
there'd be
the same.
Guys rotating in and out, or somebody'd get wounded or killed, and then there'd be new guys coming in the company, and but essentially you would, and then we slept together in the same hooch back in the rear area, so we were a pretty tight group.
Yeah, you're tight, you're together all the time, and you're in really high stress circumstances. That would probably forge a strong bond. How is it how do you go back after you've lost someone or someone's back injured?
You just kind of keep pushing on. So
yeah,
a lot of that stuff you put behind you, and it comes back later. But
right. What's the when you're going there, and are you always going behind enemy lines? Is that kind of the idea? You're always being slipped in behind them?
We went into what they called free fire zones. It's just everything in there was considered enemy. It was controlled by the NVA, not by us. So.
Okay.
And in cases like going across border into Laos, it's pretty obvious that we don't have a presence back there.
Right.
Like I said, most of the time we were completely out of range of the farthest artillery bases.
So you're on your own. When you got ready for these missions, how much were you briefed about what you were going to be doing and how it was going to happen? What kind of information were you given?
We just had a general briefing of what the main essence of the mission was going to be, what we were going to try to do, what our main objective was. Like I said, the one time we were to look for this Special Forces team that disappeared. We ended up not finding them, but we did find lots of NVA regulars. And
whoops.
Yeah.
Well, I guess all intelligence is intelligence, right? It's good to know. On those times that you were surrounded and you thought you may not get out, what do you do then? Like, how do you fight your way mentally and physically through that?
You just keep on fighting, and hope that the support gets there in time. So, The first time I was wounded, I had some shrapnel in my head, but my team leader was severely wounded, and we just had to keep on fighting. So.
How long did you have to fight before you were?
That was probably about an hour. We were any longer, and we probably wouldn't. None of us would be here. So.
So tell me about that time that you got in, the first time you got injured. How'd that happen?
Well, I got hit with a grenade. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when they came, they were always, I'm guessing, in larger numbers than you.
Absolutely. We were operating in their backyard, not ours.
Right. Tables turn.
And like I said, they had a lot of incentive. They hated us, but they feared us. So we took the fight to them. So.
Right. Did that give you a certain amount? I don't want to say arrogance, but did that give you a cockiness? I mean, you're taking the fight.
Yeah.
How does that translate later on in life?
I would say most of us, quite a few of us, stayed in the military. I think generally overall we were pretty successful in life.
Right. Was it hard to? Did you have that same swagger or cockiness when you got back to civilian life?
I came back very severely wounded and spent over a year in an Army hospital, so I kind of had some detox times.
Decompression.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Let's talk about when you were over there. What did you miss about Montana, or what did you miss about home?
Oh, I just missed the snow, the fishing, the hunting, my family, the horses. My code name was Cowboy when I was over there.
Okay. We
used code names on the radio because we all had a bounty on our heads.
Okay.
So in my code, being from Montana and kind of living on a ranch or a farm, I was Cowboy. So.
Right. That's an okay. That's an okay nickname.
Yeah, a code name. So we actually still call each other by our code names when we have our reunions.
So no, you still don't know their real names.
Yeah. So
did you have much communication with home, or are you so far? I mean,
we're in the main American base at Chu Lai.
Okay.
We're not in the field. So then we would fly out to the mountains. So there was communication. Some letters, no phone calls. My first phone call came from Japan. I called my sister. I stepped on a mine the second time. So.
Okay.
And of course, as soon as she realized who it was on the phone, she started crying. So she knew something was wrong. So.
Did you? Let's talk. The second time you were injured, you stepped on a mine. How'd that happen?
I was walking point for a radio relay team. So
okay.
I'd actually run enough missions that I didn't have to go out in the field anymore. But we were running preliminary recon for the 71 Laotian offensive, and we were kind of shorthanded. So they had a whole bunch of guys that were just new in the company that they thought a relatively safe radio relay. They weren't even a regular team, but they needed somebody to take them out that had some experience, so I volunteered. And everything was volunteer. The LRRPs, everything, the Rangers, jump school, it's all volunteer.
Wow. So you went out and hit a mine?
I was walking point, and I realized we were in a minefield, and I was trying to get us out of it. And
how do you realize, help someone who's never been in a minefield, at least physically, metaphorically maybe, but physically?
Very mountainous where we were. And there was kind of a steep bank, and I looked over, and there's where the rain had exposed part of a mine in a bank, and it had been an area that we had been in before years ago, but left, and so they came in and mined it after we left, and I was trying to get us out of it and didn't quite make it. So.
Wow. What do you remember about that experience?
Flying through the air, watching the blood squirting out of my legs and trying to get a tourniquet on my leg and barking orders at the new guys what to do and what to watch out for, because I was the only one out there that had any experience.
Wow, they must have been wide-eyed. And
yeah, I'm sure it was an opening for them. And the guy right behind me got some shrapnel, but he wasn't hurt too badly. So
now, do LRRPs go with the medic? I mean, did you have any med? Are you your own medic?
We did not take medics to the field. We did not take officers to the field. We're all cross-trained as medics. So it just so happened the guy behind me on that mission was our new company medic. We had a medic back at the main company area. He wanted to get put in for his combat medic's badge, so we asked if he could go out with us. So that was just a coincidence. They actually did have a medic with me when
Wow.
I was as much directing him what to do as because he'd never seen a combat injury before. So
Right, and I imagine the LRRP sustained a fair number. I mean, you would almost all have to be a small number and cross-trained on this, right?
yeah.
So then did they have to medevac you out, or how did they get you out?
Actually, the chopper that dropped off the forward team that we were the radio relay for picked me up on the way back. So it was, and I had lost so much blood they had to cut down to get an IV in me. My veins had all collapsed. So.
Wow, that had to be really scary. And you were conscious through all this?
Conscious till they put the mask on my face, and I honestly thought that was it. I was surprised when I woke up. So
where'd you wake up at?
In the MASH hospital in Chu Lai, and I was tied to the bed. And they referred to me as the green guy. So
Okay.
I kind of flipped out in my mind, being tied down. I was pulling my IVs out and thinking I needed to get away from the enemy in my mind, but it was the American medical people. So they had to tie me down, and I don't know how many days I was out of it, but when I finally came out of it, the nurse said, "The green guy's awake." So.
The green guy. Wow. And so then transported to, was it to Saigon and then Japan?
To Da Nang,
Okay.
where I met one of my still best friends. He had been shot up the day after me on a, he wasn't a LRRP, he was a dog handler, and we're still friends to this day. So. And then they flew us to Japan, and I was in Japan for about a month, and then they sent me to Fort Ord, California, and I was there for over a year. So.
Wow. And what was the damage of that mine?
I have one leg that's gone,
Okay.
and I have another one that I have to wear a brace on. It blew the muscles off of it that allow me control of my foot. So,
Wow. Now, let's talk about you. You haven't let that slow you down or stop you. You've done martial arts. Tell me a little bit about that, because that's a pretty amazing story in and of itself.
well, when I first got back, I kind of got into roping steers. I was a team roper for about 15 years, and then I think I told you I had 4 daughters, and the money just wasn't there to support the team roping, and my horse got old. So then I started dabbling in the martial arts, taekwondo, through a friend of mine who's Master Dan Williams in Livingston. And he agreed to work with me with my handicaps and everything. So that's been 22 years ago, and I just a couple years ago made 4th Dan. So.
Was it hard doing that?
Yeah, and I actually couldn't do everything. I knew how to do it and that, but just physically wasn't capable of doing everything. So.
Right. Was it getting injured like that, and then kind of coming to after you realized you were at least not in enemy hands? Walk me through your next thoughts and what happened then, because that's got to be pretty shocking to take assessment of everything that's happened to you.
Well, pretty down. At that point, I realized the military career was out of the question. So then at that point, I just wanted to get healed up and come back to Montana. Really didn't have any intention of going to college until I found out they'd pay you money to go to college. So 9 years and 2 degrees later, I'm a CPA. So.
Did you? How old were you when you were injured?
20.
20's a pretty young age to have that much life experience. What do people not? There's been a lot of if you know Vietnam, you hear the term LRRPs, but not a lot of people know what they did. What are some of the misperceptions, and what are the things that people should know about LRRPs?
Well, a lot of the people over there, even our own troops, thought we were just suicidal and crazy. But
were there elements of that in the group?
Not suicidal, but.
Okay.
Maybe a little crazy. So, We had a few guys got sent back on psychological discharges.
Right.
But we were professional soldiers. That's one thing I liked. It wasn't just the normal draftees that never wanted to be there and hated it. Most of us, I said quite a few of us made a career out of the military. We were Ranger qualified, we were airborne. We were a professional military outfit. So, and that was kind of a good feeling, that knowing they had your back.
How long did it take you to get ready to get out in the field and go on a mission if you're LRRP?
In my case, it took almost 2 months of in-country training. So.
Okay. And then were the missions that you fought or that you went on, I was going to say probably more went on than fought, how much advance notice would you have before they said, okay, we're going back out, guys? This is...
Oh, a couple days usually.
Okay. Then there was some preparation?
Yeah.
How much preparation?
Depending on the mission, it could vary how much ammo you would carry. If we were just going on what they called a hunter-killer, we didn't take a whole lot of food and water. We took mostly just ammunition and claymore mines and usually an M60 machine gun. And we were just going out to pull off an ambush or try to capture some people. So. Okay.
Was it hard preparing for those missions? Was it? I mean, it gives you some time to think. Was that difficult or was that exciting?
I guess I'd kind of have to say it was exciting. That in my case, the first time I got wounded was in an area we call Happy Valley. It was completely controlled by the NVA. By the end of my time there, I was getting pulled off my team to take other teams into Happy Valley. I had more experience walking point in there than anybody in the company. And that was always a little scary because you knew you were going to be in heavy contact. So,
what's Happy Valley look like? Let's just talk about it.
Very heavy jungle, a pretty little river in the bottom of it. It's actually kind of pretty back there. It's very mountainous. There's tigers, there's monkeys, there's waterfalls, but it actually goes right all the way up into the Ho Chi Minh Trail and is not that far from the A Shaw Valley, which was actually up in the 101st AO, not ours. So.
Okay. Was it let's talk about if you had to spend the night, or you're not packing normally, I was going to say, and you've got to be pretty discreet about where you are. What are nights, or when it comes time to overnight in these places? What's that like?
Usually try to crawl into some real heavy undergrowth in that, and it's what they call the night defensive position. And you would set out some claymores, and then somebody always had to be awake. You couldn't all be asleep at the same time. And, it's hope they didn't find you at night. I did have one experience where they were chasing us with dogs at night, and we had to come out in the middle of the night. So,
wow! So they had dogs and were chasing you. What was that? That's got to be scary because the dogs can find you.
Yeah. So,
do you in that case, do you run or shoot? Do you have to take a defensive position? Or
we kept running. We were way out of. We were a long ways out there, so. And we had helicopters on station, and we actually had Spooky on station, which is a C-130 gunship, but they couldn't fire because the enemy was too close to us. So we ended up running until we could find an area where 2 bombs from a B-52 strike had landed and blown out a big enough area that we could stand on the ridge in the center and reach up into the helicopter. So,
wow, that's running for your life. You've literally had to run for your life.
Well, they said from the choppers up above, they counted over 50 flashlights following us with the dogs.
Huh.
So,
at night when you're and you've maintained silence, what do you for eating? There's no conversation. There's nothing like that.
If we spoke, it was in a whisper. So,
okay. Did you just sit there, sleep? What was when you decided to camp for the night? What do you do? Just
like I said, you just tried to find an area that would be off a main trail and probably in some heavy undergrowth where it would be unlikely anybody would be walking through there in the dark. And
then just go to sleep, or
yeah, in turns, in shifts. Okay. So if you could, sometimes it was scary enough that nobody was sleeping. So.
Is it one of those situations where, I imagine, I've heard a lot about the noises in the jungle. I've heard monkeys. I've heard it's got insects. It's got everything. Yeah. Is it hard to sleep because you think everything might be? Do you think everything?
You'll kind of learn to try to get some sleep because you just get exhausted. We were packing 80-pound packs and 110-degree heat and 90% humidity. You get pretty tired at night. So.
Yeah. What about, so let's talk about coming home. You're in a hospital for a year recovering.
Yeah.
More than that.
Yeah.
How did that recovery go, and how did you mentally overcome that obstacle and hurdle?
I just decided I was going to try to come out of it as best I could. I don't even remember how many surgeries I've had, so.
Was it pretty, when they said that, when you knew you weren't at least not one leg and another injured, how'd you not give up just saying, well, kind of writing yourself off?
I guess I just had a strong will to survive and keep on going. So.
Did you have any desire to go back there?
No.
Okay.
No, I really don't.
Okay. What about, so then after you are discharged, then what? How did your life?
Then I went back to Bozeman and started college soon after. And got an ag degree and got out of college for a while and realized I couldn't physically do what needed to be done with an ag degree, so I went back and got an accounting degree and passed the CPA exam the first time around, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Accounting and being a LRRP seem like they're on two different sides of a spectrum.
Yeah.
Are they?
They are, yeah.
Was being in Vietnam a good thing for you?
I don't regret it. I would probably do it over again. I wouldn't wish to be wounded so severely, but there was some good things about it. I think we did a very good job of what we were supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah, when you look back at the Vietnam War, especially because you were behind enemy lines and you saw the NVA face to face, as it were. Looking back on the war, how do you think about it now? What are your thoughts when someone says the Vietnam War, and what's your opinion on it?
Well, my thoughts are we won almost every engagement. I mean, we did lose a few, but we won most every one of them, most every major battle. And we lost the war, but we didn't lose it. It was lost here in the States. They just gave up on it and pulled us out. So,
yeah. When Saigon fell, when that happened, was that hard for you?
Yeah, emotionally it was kind of hard.
Yeah. When you went over or you were around in 69, 70, so you knew that public sentiment, it wasn't the most popular war we've ever fought.
Right.
Did that affect you personally, or did that affect you in the field?
Not in the field. We kind of heard the stories over there, what was going on back here, but I experienced some of it on the West Coast when I was coming back to Montana. Actually experienced some animosity from a World War II vet that looked at me and looked at my ribbons, and I did look young for my age, and he thought I was faking it. He goes, "There's no way you could have earned all those." And I said, "Well, you think what you want to think." So,
wow, that had to be a little shocking from someone who should have probably known better.
Yeah.
Did you by the time you get out, you're 21, right? Yeah. 21. You have a lot of experience by the time you're 21. You've got a lot more experience than most 21-year-olds. Did that put you at odds with people coming back? I mean, most 21-year-olds couldn't have imagined some of the things that you'd been through.
Back
from and getting back to MSU and all that.
Yeah, I soon learned to keep it to myself. So they what I went through, I mean, they just flat told, we don't want to hear about it. Oh yeah, Vietnam, blah blah blah. We don't want to hear about it. We want to go out and get drunk and party and get laid. We don't want to hear about Vietnam. And
right.
You know, oh, did you kill people? Did you burn babies? And it just pretty soon you just don't even say you were in Vietnam.
Yeah. Yeah. Has that changed recently?
Yeah.
Why? Why do you think?
I think a lot of it has to do with the acceptance of the Iraq and Afghanistan vets coming back now. Totally different society now.
You came from a military family, so they knew enough the war and just soldier. Did people, beyond the physical change, obviously, when you came back, did people think you had changed otherwise?
I'm sure they did.
Okay.
I had a bit of a time readjusting. So.
Okay. How did that readjustment? When you say that, what does that mean?
Probably way too much drinking the first few years I was back. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you gradually? How did you learn to? I don't want to say make peace with that because I'm not sure that that's the right phrase. But how did you learn to deal with that?
Just found new interests. Got involved in going to college. Got involved in team roping and
martial arts eventually.
And martial arts and just found other outlets. So,
what's the? There's been so much in film or television made about Vietnam. Is there been anything, in your opinion, that comes close to capturing what Vietnam was like?
I haven't seen most of them.
Okay. By choice, I'm guessing.
By choice, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When you get together, there was that kind of esprit de corps with the six that you were with. Do you get together and see them a lot? Do you?
Yeah, not necessarily the six I was with, but some of them, and then other guys that were in the company. We were all LRRPs. We formed a association, and I just came back from our reunion in Minneapolis. And you know, sometimes when I try to tell a civilian that I went in 6-man teams behind enemy lines, they don't get it. And why would you ever do that? But they get it. They know. You don't have to explain yourself. So
yeah,
it's the same mentality that why would somebody become a ranger now? Why would somebody become a Green Beret or a SEAL? If you're not one, it's kind of hard to explain. So
yeah, yeah. Did you coming back now when people ask you about Vietnam and what you did there, I don't want to, obviously you've told me a lot, but what do you tell most people when they ask?
I just tell them I was proud of what I did, and I'd probably do it again, and I think, you know, I have nothing to be ashamed of. So
yeah. When you made that call home, what was it like for your family back here, knowing that you'd been injured like that, and what kind of support?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure they were upset, and I just tell them, you know, I'm not going to die. I'm hurt, but I'm not going to die. So
yeah, yeah. What were there good memories in Vietnam?
Yeah, there were. It's just the camaraderie and.
Do you have a favorite? I mean, a cherished memory, something that you know, because I think we all think of Vietnam War, it's all bad, but I want to hear a good story.
Well, my funniest story, I guess, actually a couple of them I'll tell you.
Yeah.
One of the funniest ones is we were all kind of drinking a lot and having a big party, and our first sergeant was a pretty scary individual. He was a real hardcore Ranger first sergeant, but he'd been drinking quite a bit too, so somebody went to the mess hall and got a sheet pie. Mess hall would make a pie in like big cookie sheets. It was pumpkin pie. They put it in his bed and put the blankets back over it. So when he went to bed, he threw back the covers drunk and flopped down into a sheet full of pumpkin pie. He was screaming and yelling and threatening to court-martial all of us. So
that's a good. I'm gonna learn that trick. You pull that out sometime.
Yeah, I guess my other one was coming in on a mission, being a point man. I was always the first one off, and I was standing out on the skid of the helicopter, and I heard bugles blowing. And all I could think about was my dad being in the Korean War and talking about the Chinese blowing bugles as they'd have these human waves attack the American positions. And I thought, we're dead. I mean, there's a whole Chinese army down here. We got off. It was fairly uneventful. I'm looking around, and there's big steaming piles of manure. We had spooked a herd of wild elephants coming in on the chopper, and they were trumpeting. But up in the chopper and that, it sounded like bugles blowing. So
that's one of the things I've heard. I've heard some elephant stories, or elephants and tigers, not things that we normally encounter.
Yeah.
Wow. Did you ever see? So you saw elephants. Did you see tigers?
Didn't see them. I heard them. They would scream a lot, almost like a woman screaming at night. So
that had to be a little spooky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
monkeys.
A Asian red stag, which was about the size of a mule deer, but with horns more like an elk, that had been killed in a rocket attack. So, but just recently, it was recently killed. So.
Wow. So there's a whole different.
Yeah.
Whole different animals and all that.
And monkeys and squirrels and insects. We used to tuck our pants into our boots and then wrap the top with electric tape to keep the leeches from crawling up our legs.
I've heard stories of the leeches.
Yeah.
They're true, huh?
They're true.
What about snakes?
And they have an affinity for very soft places. So when they crawl up your legs, they were headed for your crotch.
That's awful. That's again, thank you for your service, because I don't want I don't want any part of that noise.
Yeah, there was plenty of snakes. Yeah. So
did any of that ever? I mean, you're out there, and I guess you're looking for the NVA, so snakes probably aren't going to scare you.
No, and I'm not afraid of snakes anyway. So.
Or leeches or whatever. Yeah. Did you when you saw the NVA? Are they how do they look? I mean, are they in? If you come up on one of their camps, does it look kind of like any old Army camp like ours, or how does it look different?
Well, it's not as developed. They're out in the jungle and that, but they'd have their little tents and thatch huts and stuff if they were kind of semi-permanent. And a lot of times they would have where we were at, sharpened bamboo stakes pointing out like this. That was for tigers. Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gives you a little different perspective. You know, one of the things that we're hoping to do with this series is to make sure that we not only preserve the stories for today, but preserve them going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So that people, you know, maybe 50 years from now, you might still be around. I probably won't be the way I'm going, but can look back and say, you know, hear about what Vietnam was like from people who were there. And you saw parts of Vietnam that most people as a LRRP never saw, even if they were over there. What do you hope they remember, or what do you want them to remember about Vietnam?
In many places where I was at in the Central Highlands was actually quite pretty, mountainous and jungles. And I used to tell people the only time I ever saw a rice paddy was flying over them on the way out to the mountains. So a lot of the line troops were down in the rice paddies and slogging through the mud, and I was back in the mountains. It was steep, it was mountainous, but it was actually kind of pretty back in there.
Did it remind you of all at home of home or Montana mountains, or was it?
Yeah, if you added a lot more heat and humidity and no snow and completely different animal species. So
not really. I mean, okay.
It maybe reminded me a little bit more of one of my trips to Japan where we were up in the mountains. So
yeah. What is something? Have you been to Washington D.C. and seen the Vietnam Memorial?
I have not. No, I've seen a half-size mock-up of it.
Okay. Is that something that you'd want to do or not, or how do you?
Yeah, maybe someday.
Yeah. Okay. So when you came back, as much as you could, one of the things that I think you said to me is, you know, just kind of got on with life and lived that. So you were able to do that even after getting an accounting degree and kind of live life normally. Do you think that is there any way that Vietnam affects you kind of on a daily basis, or is that a part of a different life?
Well, in the fact that I got to get up and put on a leg in the morning and
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair. But other than that,
Yeah.
right?
No, it's been long enough now that it doesn't really bother me. I had my time of the nightmares and all that, but it's I definitely had PTSD for a while, but time's a great healer. So.
Yeah. Having 4 daughters, I'm sure that was its own new challenge. Those were their own challenges. What did they ask you much about that, or did they know about your?
Not really, not much. I haven't said much to them about it. They know about it, but
Right. One of the things I've said this in virtually every interview, and I'll say it again. So sorry, but it's probably foolish of me to try to take years worth of very intense experience and shrink it down into this one interview. It's a fool's errand. But is there anything about what you did or experiences you had that I've missed that need to be preserved?
No, I don't think so. Nothing that really jumps out at me.
Well, I appreciate what you said here, and I also want to say thank you for helping me understand what LRRPs did. And I've heard tell of them. They were more I won't say stuff of legend, but when I've interviewed people, they talk some about LRRPs, but we haven't had one as part of the series. So I really want to thank you. For those of you who don't know Montana geography, we're sitting in Billings, and you had to drive more than an hour to get here and be here with me. So I want to thank you for that too, and for making time for that. I really do appreciate it, and thanks for your service. Thanks for being willing to go and do that.
Thank you.
I do appreciate that. This has been Daryl Ehrlich. I've been with Lynn Walker. It is September 21st, and this has been Vietnam Voices.